On the morning of March 2, 1978, at approximately 7:13 hours, local police in Franklin County, Ohio received a call from a sanitation worker regarding a suspicious object partially concealed in a drainage ditch off Interstate 270, approximately 2 miles south of the East Main Street exit. Upon arrival, Deputy Thomas R. Leland confirmed the presence of a deceased female, estimated to be between 17 and 20 years old, Caucasian, with distinct auburn-colored hair measuring 14 inches in length. The scene was heavily saturated with recent rainwater from storms that had passed through the night before. The body was submerged to the mid-chest level. She was fully clothed in a denim jacket, a light green sweater, and tan corduroy trousers, all items heavily waterlogged but intact. There was no immediate evidence of sexual assault visible on preliminary examination, however, ligature marks were observed around the victim's neck, wrists, and ankles. No identification was found on the body. The victim's fingernails showed recent breakage and embedded material suggestive of a struggle. Under the left index fingernail, lab later recovered a fiber consistent with synthetic upholstery, beige in color, typical of automobile seating fabrics manufactured between 1970 and 1977. Autopsy report, case number 78-330A. Victim identification, later confirmed as Denise Marie Harrow, aged 18, missing since February 27, 1978. Cause of death, asphyxiation via manual strangulation, complicated by ligature compression. Time of death estimate, 48 to 72 hours prior to discovery. Other notes, no drugs or alcohol found in toxicology screen. 3 fractured ribs and minor contusions to the upper arms indicated an altercation preceding death. Background. Denise was reported missing by her roommate at Ohio State University, having last been seen leaving a study group at Thompson Library around 2100 hours on February 27. Friends described her as diligent, introverted, and highly cautious about nighttime travel, often arranging rides rather than walking. An early profile developed by the Behavioral Science Unit suggested a suspect capable of gaining voluntary access to victims, someone likely perceived as non-threatening. Given Denise's careful habits, the abduction likely involved either deceit, impersonation, or coercion using an element of authority. Notable factors. Victim's hair color, auburn, noted explicitly in preliminary reports, no clear connection yet drawn. No signs of robbery, wallet found discarded 3 blocks from campus, missing only cash, with credit cards intact. The case attracted moderate media attention at the time but quickly cooled due to the absence of witnesses, forensic leads, or suspects. It remained classified as a single, isolated homicide until subsequent events suggested otherwise. On May 17, 1978, at approximately 5:46 hours, a jogger discovered a second deceased female along a disused access road behind Alum Creek Park, approximately 12 miles northeast of downtown Columbus, Ohio. Weather conditions at the time were clear, with temperatures recorded at 57 degrees Fahrenheit. The location was heavily wooded, with sparse traffic and minimal residential presence. The body was positioned face down, partially concealed by fallen branches and leaves, suggesting deliberate attempt at concealment. The victim was clothed in a white peasant blouse and blue jeans. Both garments were torn at seams but did not exhibit slicing or cutting. Her hair was auburn, shoulder length, and appeared to have been brushed post-mortem, as indicated by forensic combings that revealed unusually low levels of tangling for a body left exposed for approximately 36 to 48 hours. Initial examination at the scene showed bruising consistent with ligature binding on both wrists and ankles. Neck contusions, circular and deep, suggested the use of a thin cord or wire. Unlike the first victim, signs of superficial defensive wounds were noted on the palms and forearms, indicating a struggle. Autopsy report, case number 78-477-B. Victim identification, identified as Martha Lynn Coleman, aged 19, reported missing on May 14, 1978, from her part-time job at a diner near the University District. Cause of death, ligature strangulation. Time of death estimate, approximately midnight to 2 o'clock hours, May 15. Other notes, No evidence of sexual assault, low blood alcohol content, 0.02%, consistent with consumption of one alcoholic beverage within 2 to 3 hours prior to death. Background: Coleman had been working a split shift at Norman's Diner on High Street and was last seen exiting through the back employee entrance to reach her car parked in a poorly lit lot. Witnesses stated she left alone and appeared untroubled. Her vehicle was found the next morning with keys still in the ignition and the driver's door ajar. Interview with Martha's friends and co-workers revealed that she was cautious, often wary of walking alone at night. It was particularly noted that she had recently expressed concerns about being watched during late shifts but had not filed any formal reports. Linkage analysis. Investigators began observing preliminary consistencies between the Harrow and Coleman cases. Victims were similar in age, 18 to 19 years, physical type, Caucasian, slight build, and hair color, auburn. Both victims were known for cautious behavior regarding nighttime safety. Both bodies exhibited restraint marks and signs of a pre-death altercation. No overt signs of sexual assault or theft in either case. Both crime scenes were in remote, lightly trafficked areas within 15 miles of central Columbus. A forensic comparison of fiber evidence revealed further connection: a beige synthetic fiber, nearly identical to the one recovered from Harrow's fingernails, was located in the hem of Coleman's blouse. Laboratory analysis concluded the fibers matched in composition, consistent with 1970s automobile upholstery manufactured by General Motors Corporation. The behavioral science unit suggested the killer may have employed a vehicle to abduct victims, likely approaching them under pretenses of offering assistance or impersonating a figure of authority, e.g., off-duty police officer. The fact that both victims had trusted routines indicated the offender utilized subtle coercion rather than overt force. Despite these emerging patterns, the investigation remained hampered by a lack of eyewitnesses and the broad, generic nature of potential suspect profiles. Notable factors. Both victims' auburn hair color was not lost on detectives but was not yet considered definitive proof of a targeted selection. Early media leaks speculated on a redhead killer, a term investigators avoided publicly in order to prevent panic or influence potential witness statements. An internal memorandum dated June 1, 1978, advised law enforcement in surrounding counties to be alert for additional missing persons matching the described victim profile. At approximately 15:23 hours on August 3, 1978, local authorities in Gahanna, Ohio, responded to a call from a maintenance worker at the abandoned Brookview Motel, located off Hamilton Road. The worker, conducting an unofficial inspection after multiple reports of trespassing, found the body of a deceased young woman positioned inside room 6B, concealed beneath a discarded mattress. The body was discovered in a state of advanced decomposition, complicated by high ambient temperatures exceeding 85 degrees Fahrenheit over the prior week. Despite the environmental degradation, key physical characteristics remained identifiable. The victim was Caucasian, estimated age between 18 and 22 years, with auburn hair tied loosely with a fabric hairband. Clothing consisted of a faded red tank top and dark blue shorts. Scene investigators noted deliberate post-mortem posing. The victim's arms had been crossed over the chest in a manner inconsistent with natural collapse. No blood spatter or evidence of a struggle was found at the scene, indicating the possibility of body transport after death. Autopsy report, case number 78-589-C. Victim identification, confirmed through dental records as Shelby and Lockhart, age 20, reported missing on July 24, 1978. Cause of death, ligature strangulation, decomposition precluded finer analysis of soft tissue trauma. Time of death estimate, 7 to 10 days prior to discovery. Other notes, presence of foreign adhesive residue, duct tape, on the wrists and face. No evidence of recent sexual assault due to decomposition. Background. Lockhart had recently moved to Columbus from Lancaster, Ohio, to attend Columbus State Community College. She was last seen leaving her apartment complex near Bryden Road after telling her roommate she intended to catch a movie downtown. No vehicle ownership, Shelby relied on public transportation. Eyewitness reports were scarce, One witness recalled seeing a young woman matching Shelby's description near the East Broad Street bus stop, speaking briefly with a man described only as white, medium build, clean cut, possibly mid-30s, driving a tan or beige sedan. No further identifications could be made. Linkage and pattern development. Victim's hair color, auburn, again matched the previous cases. Ligature strangulation continued as the consistent method of killing. Victim's cautious behavioral profile aligned with Harrow and Coleman. Shelby was described as not the type to get into a stranger's car. Beige synthetic fibers, consistent with prior cases, found in victim's clothing folds, particularly embedded in the hem of her tank top. The behavioral science unit updated their profile. Offender traits: white male, 30 to 40 years old, familiarity with the Columbus area, possession of a beige or tan American-made sedan, mobile and opportunistic but targeting a very specific victim type. Modus operandi: abduction through deception, swift restraint, controlled environment likely within the vehicle itself, deliberate posing post-mortem indicating ritualistic tendencies or personal gratification. Public and media reaction. Upon unofficial leaks from within law enforcement, local newspapers, led by the Columbus Dispatch, began running headlines such as "Red-haired women urged to be cautious." Panic ensued, particularly among college students and young working women fitting the victim profile. By August 10, 1978, the Franklin County Sheriff's Department issued a public advisory urging women with red or auburn hair to avoid traveling alone after dark. Several local wig shops reported sharp upticks in sales of black and brown hair dye products. Notable factors. Witness description of the suspect vehicle represented the first tangible clue suggesting the killer's means of operation. Interstate law enforcement bulletins were issued across Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky, requesting information on individuals matching the rough suspect profile and vehicle description. Despite heightened public vigilance, no credible leads materialized in the immediate weeks following Lockhart's discovery. Internal memoranda from both the FBI and Franklin County Sheriff's Office, dated August 18, 1978, acknowledged for the first time in official documentation that a serial killer was highly probable, and that victim targeting was believed to be primarily based on hair color and associated phenotype. On September 9, 1978, at approximately 6:12 hours, a farmer in Licking County, Ohio contacted local authorities after discovering a body at the edge of his south pasture near Refugee Road, approximately 25 miles east of Columbus. The pasture bordered a heavily wooded area and a disused service road accessible by vehicle. Responding deputies found the deceased female partially covered with brush and a torn plastic tarp. Despite early autumn's cooler temperatures, 53 degrees Fahrenheit at the time of discovery, decomposition was moderate, suggesting exposure for several days. The victim was clothed in a navy blue sweatshirt bearing the logo of Capital University and faded denim jeans. Again, the victim's hair was auburn, shoulder-length, matted with mud but otherwise unaltered. Autopsy report, case number 78-641-D. Victim identification, confirmed via fingerprints as Emily Rachel Donnelly, aged 21, missing since September 3, 1978. Cause of death, ligature strangulation, with associated fractures of the hyoid bone indicating forceful compression. Time of death estimate, 4 to 6 days prior to recovery. Other notes: linear abrasions on wrists and ankles, adhesive residue on mouth area, consistent with duct tape usage, minor scalp trauma suggesting a blow to the back of the head. Background: Donnelly was a senior at Capital University, studying nursing. She was last seen alive leaving a late shift at Grant Medical Center around 22:30 hours on September 3. A colleague noted that Donnelly had intended to drive directly home. Her car, a 1974 Ford Pinto, was later located abandoned in a grocery store parking lot, ignition undamaged, purse inside. This suggested voluntary departure from her vehicle, or that she had been lured from it under duress without force. Critical mistake, evidence recovery. For the first time in the investigation, physical evidence of substantial forensic value was recovered. A partial boot print, impressed into the soft dirt approximately 15 feet from the body. Forensic analysis indicated a men's size 10.5 boot, manufactured by Red Wing Shoes, model produced between 1976 to 1978. Additionally, a single cigarette butt, filtered, was found near the boot print. Laboratory analysis confirmed the presence of saliva containing DNA material. At the time, DNA profiling was not yet available, however, the blood type was determined, type O, Rh positive. Witness interviews near Grant Medical Center produced another lead. A parking lot security guard reported seeing a beige sedan circling the lot between 22:15 and 22:45 hours. The guard described the driver as a white male, short cropped hair, approximately 5 feet 10 inches, and wearing what appeared to be a light-colored windbreaker. Due to poor lighting, the vehicle's license plate could not be observed clearly, but it was believed to bear an Ohio registration. Behavioral analysis update. Investigators noted a potential shift in offender behavior. Increased brazenness, operating closer to populated areas. Carelessness at dump site, leaving behind footwear impressions and biological evidence. The use of duct tape as an additional restraint or control mechanism, consistent with an evolving MO. The Behavioral Science Unit advised that the offender's escalation and mistakes might be linked to mounting confidence or psychological destabilization, suggesting a possible narrowing window for apprehension before further violence. Public pressure and law enforcement response. With mounting public anxiety, Franklin County and Licking County authorities formed a joint task force officially designated Operation Auburn. The task force's mission was to cross-reference missing persons reports for auburn-haired females, compile composite sketches based on vehicle and suspect descriptions, and coordinate undercover operations at likely abduction zones, e.g., college campuses, shopping centers, late-night public transit stops. Despite these intensified efforts, no arrest was made immediately following Donnelly's murder. By late September 1978, internal memoranda expressed deep concern that unless the killer was caught or neutralized, further deaths were imminent. Notable factors. Forensic evidence, boot print, cigarette butt, marked the first tangible link to the killer beyond fibers. Composite suspect profile narrowed but remained too broad for immediate identification. Killer continued targeting exclusively young auburn-haired females, supporting theory of fetishistic fixation. On the evening of October 14, 1978, at approximately 20:47 hours, a 911 call was placed by Ms. Carla Simmons, a 19-year-old Ohio State University student, reporting a violent assault in the vicinity of the Olentangy River Trail, a frequently traveled pedestrian path near campus. Patrol units dispatched to the scene found Simmons visibly distressed, with minor lacerations to the wrists and facial bruising. She was transported immediately to University Hospital for examination and interviewed shortly after stabilization. Victim/witness statement. According to Simmons' sworn affidavit, she had left a study group at approximately 19:30 hours and was walking alone toward her apartment when she was approached by a man driving a tan-colored sedan, later confirmed to be a 1976 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. The man called out through the passenger window, claiming to be an off-duty police officer warning pedestrians to avoid the river trail after dark due to recent attacks. He offered Simmons a ride to a safer area. Sensing hesitation, the man displayed what appeared to be a leather badge wallet, although Simmons could not verify its authenticity in the poor light. Feeling pressured and alarmed by the mention of attacks, she reluctantly entered the vehicle. Simmons recounted that within 5 minutes, the man turned onto an isolated access road. When she protested, he produced a thin rope from the center console and attempted to bind her hands. A struggle ensued. Simmons managed to open the passenger door and throw herself from the moving vehicle. She sustained abrasions and contusions from the fall but escaped further injury. The assailant fled the scene at high speed, heading southbound on Olentangy River Road. Physical description provided. Sex, male. Race, white. Age, 30 to 40 years. Height, approximately 5 feet 10 inches. Build, medium. Hair, light brown or sandy blonde, short, combed back. Clothing, beige windbreaker, dark slacks. Vehicle, tan or beige Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, 1976 model confirmed via badging and grille identification by automotive experts. Carla Simmons' hair was, notably, natural auburn. Forensic evidence recovered. From Simmons' clothing and under her fingernails, forensic teams recovered fibers consistent with synthetic automobile upholstery matching previous cases. A partial latent fingerprint on Simmons' purse, likely transferred during the struggle. Trace adhesive residue on her right sleeve, indicative of an attempt to apply restraint. Composite sketch development. With Simmons' detailed description, the Franklin County Sheriff's Office produced the first viable composite sketch of the suspect. Distributed widely across Ohio and neighboring states, the sketch depicted a clean-cut, average-looking white male with non-distinctive but well-kept features, a deliberate ordinariness that investigators believed contributed to his success in luring victims. Impact on the investigation. Simmons' survival marked the first instance of direct victim resistance and escape, altering the trajectory of the investigation. Confirmation of tactics, use of fake law enforcement authority, false warnings to instill fear, and rapid escalation to physical coercion. Vehicle confirmation, the Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme became a key identifier. DMV records indicated several thousand such vehicles registered in Ohio alone, narrowing potential suspects only slightly. Public warning expansion, law enforcement, now armed with a composite sketch and vehicle description, issued widespread bulletins through local news outlets. Behavioral profile update. The Behavioral Science Unit noted that the assailant's willingness to impersonate law enforcement indicated increased sophistication and premeditation. However, his failure to subdue Simmons, and subsequent flight without completing the abduction, suggested rising risk tolerance, often a prelude to eventual mistakes leading to apprehension. Notable factors. For the first time, the killer left behind enough forensic and eyewitness evidence to permit probable future identification. Simmons' escape heightened public vigilance dramatically, hotline calls quadrupled within the next 2 weeks. Despite public pressure, law enforcement feared that the killer, now aware he had been seen and described, might accelerate his attacks or alter his methods to avoid detection. Following Carla Simmons' escape and the release of the composite sketch, Franklin County authorities processed over 1,300 public tips between October 15 and November 1, 1978. Approximately 70% were deemed non-actionable, however, several leads converged on a small geographic and demographic subset: white males, ages 30 to 40, residing in the Columbus metro area, owning tan or beige American sedans, and having prior minor offenses or suspicious activity reports. A critical breakthrough occurred on November 2, 1978, when a Columbus mechanic contacted authorities regarding a customer fitting the description. The individual, Russell Wayne Eldred, age 36, had brought a 1976 beige Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme to the garage on October 16, 1978, requesting urgent repairs to the passenger side door latch and frame, damage consistent with Simmons' reported escape. Subject profile, Russell Wayne Eldred. DOB, January 17, 1942. Height, 5 feet 10 inches. Weight, 172 pounds. Occupation, part-time security guard, previous employment included night watchman roles, terminated repeatedly for attendance issues. Residency, lived alone in a rented trailer outside Reynoldsburg, Ohio. Criminal record, 2 misdemeanor charges for impersonating a police officer, 1969, 1972, dismissed without conviction due to procedural errors. Vehicle ownership, registered owner of a 1976 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, beige, Ohio plate RZN 548. Investigative action. On November 4, 1978, under court order, Eldred's vehicle was impounded for forensic examination. Findings included: beige synthetic fibers identical in chemical composition to those found on Harrow, Coleman, Lockhart, Donnelly, and Simmons. Trace blood residue in the passenger side footwell. Preliminary serological testing matched the blood type, type O, Rh positive, consistent with the cigarette but found near Emily Donnelly's body. A leather wallet containing a phony badge, stamped with the words, Special Officer, purchased via mail order catalog in 1975. Simultaneously, a search warrant was executed on Eldred's residence. Items recovered included multiple rolls of duct tape, nylon cords matching the diameter and weave of ligatures used on prior victims, a collection of newspaper clippings regarding the Auburn murders, some annotated with handwritten notes. Hair samples believed to be from multiple individuals, found taped to the inside of a closet door. Behavioral observations. Agents conducting surveillance noted Eldred's movements were erratic post-Simmons' escape. He ceased working scheduled security shifts, changed residence temporarily, staying with a relative in Newark, Ohio, and exhibited hypervigilance when approached by strangers or law enforcement. Arrest and interrogation. On November 6, 1978, Eldred was arrested without incident outside a grocery store in Reynoldsburg. During initial interrogation, Eldred denied any involvement in the abductions and murders, claiming he picked up a few girls, but never hurt anybody. No confession was obtained despite several hours of questioning. When confronted with forensic evidence linking fibers from his car to multiple victims, Eldred requested legal counsel and terminated the interview. Pending charges. At the time of arrest, Franklin County prosecutors filed charges of attempted kidnapping, in connection with Simmons, obstruction of justice, and impersonating a police officer. Murder charges for the deaths of Harrow, Coleman, Lockhart, and Donnelly were being prepared, pending confirmatory DNA or serological matches, at the time reliant upon blood type, saliva secretor status, and hair microscopy. Public reaction. News of the arrest was met with a mix of relief and unease. While Eldred's capture appeared to bring an end to the immediate threat, doubts lingered over whether all evidence would hold up in court. Public faith in forensic science was still developing, and without a confession or eyewitness to prior murders, prosecutors faced challenges. Notable factors. Eldred's prior impersonations of law enforcement indicated a long-standing pattern of deceitful authority behavior. His choice of victims exclusively with auburn hair reinforced a fetishistic or fixation-based motive profile. Despite strong circumstantial and forensic links, the lack of direct evidence for each murder would make the forthcoming trial difficult. By November 10, 1978, a grand jury convened to determine formal indictments against Russell Wayne Eldred. On December 1, 1978, the Franklin County Grand Jury formally indicted Russell Wayne Eldred on the following charges. For counts of aggravated murder, Denise Marie Harrow, Martha Lynn Coleman, Shelby and Lockhart, Emily Rachel Donnelly. 1 count of attempted kidnapping, Carla Simmons. 2 counts of impersonating a peace officer. 1 count of obstruction of justice. Eldred's defense, led by court-appointed attorney James P. Yoder, immediately filed motions to suppress forensic evidence, arguing improper chain of custody and contamination during vehicle and residence searches. After a 3-week evidentiary hearing, Judge Harold E. Markson ruled the evidence admissible, citing strict adherence to search warrant procedures. The trial. The trial of Russell Wayne Eldred commenced on March 5, 1979, at the Franklin County Courthouse. Proceedings lasted 27 days. Key evidence presented by the prosecution included fiber analysis linking Eldred's vehicle to all 4 deceased victims and to Carla Simmons. Blood type analysis matching the cigarette but recovered at Emily Donnelly's dump site to Eldred's known blood group. Testimony from Carla Simmons, identifying Eldred as her attacker with 95% certainty under controlled conditions. Testimony from the mechanic who repaired Eldred's damaged vehicle door days after Simmons' escape. Presentation of Eldred's phony badge and associated police impersonation history. The defense countered by attacking the reliability of fiber evidence, arguing that beige fibers were common and non-unique. They further portrayed Eldred as a socially isolated individual with poor mental health but denied any homicidal intent. Verdict. On April 12, 1979, after 11 hours of deliberation, the jury returned unanimous verdicts. Guilty on 1 count of attempted kidnapping, Simmons' case. Guilty on 2 counts of impersonating an officer. Guilty of aggravated murder in the deaths of Denise Marie Harrow and Emily Rachel Donnelly. Hung jury, 10-2 split, on charges relating to Martha Lynn Coleman and Shelby and Lockhart, citing insufficient direct physical evidence to conclusively link Eldred beyond a reasonable doubt. Eldred was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole, plus 30 years for related charges. Appeals. Eldred filed multiple appeals between 1980 and 1985, all of which were denied. He remained incarcerated at the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility in Lucasville until his death from a myocardial infarction on June 18, 1993, at the age of 51. Post-trial developments. Advancements in DNA technology during the late 1990s led to the re-examination of forensic material preserved from the Auburn murders. In 2002, mitochondrial DNA extracted from blood samples in Eldred's impounded vehicle matched preserved samples from Lockhart and Coleman at a high statistical probability, greater than 99.87%, posthumously affirming Eldred's guilt in all 4 murders. Legacy. The Auburn murders remain one of the first cases in Ohio to demonstrate the future critical role of fiber and trace evidence in linking serial offenders to multiple crimes without reliance on confessions or eyewitness testimony. The case also spurred legislative efforts to tighten regulations around the manufacture and distribution of imitation police identification. Carla Simmons, the lone survivor, completed her education and went on to advocate for improved campus security measures. In 1998, she contributed to the foundation of Project SHIELD, a non-profit organization supporting assault survivors. Closing notes. Despite the eventual resolution, the Auburn murders case left lasting unease in the Columbus area. Survivors and victims' families remained haunted by the randomness of Eldred's selection process, choosing based on a single trait, the color of their hair. Internal FBI case documentation lists the Auburn murders as a Category 2 serial homicide series, officially designated closed, conditional, noting that while the offender is deceased and the murders linked, full judicial resolution was never achieved for all victims during his lifetime.